Another episode of The Molten Truth. My name is Zoey Michaels, and we are here today with someone who has a subject that is actually very close to my heart, health and nutrition. I am a big fan of eating healthy, finding the best way to prepare foods tasty, but that are good for us and contribute to our actual health. Now, I have to admit, looking at me, I need to work on the exercise things, but we're going to talk to Sharissa, pick her brain a little bit, find out about her history and what led to this book that we're going to discuss. And I'm actually going to let her share her story and the title of the book. So we're going to just jump right in. Sharissa, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really my pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you. So you were telling me beforehand that you have quite the history, I think, with family, with some health issues that kind of led you down this path.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. So, what started my curiosity for the health space was actually my mother's journey way back when I was a young teenager. So, just about 11, 12 years old, my mother started having these issues where she couldn't really leave her room. She was dealing with colitis and a hernia, and it made it so that she was unable to eat. She was unable to really leave her room. She was really unable to come downstairs. And it created a dependence for her on substances. And those substances eventually did take over for her. And that did end up landing her in her bed for most of my life with her. She ended up kicking me out of the house when I was 17. So from about the time that I was 12 years old to the time that I was 17, I did take over the household responsibilities, things like cooking, cleaning, making sure my siblings went to school, and things that of that nature became a very low priority for me. In fact, eating became a low priority for me. Going to school became a low priority for me. I was too busy, right? And also my focus was on keeping my sisters as safe as possible. Prescription medication can cause a lot of side effects, including sleeping all day, but it can also create a lot of rage and a lot of what happens when you're coming off of a drug versus like going back onto it. There was this middle period that was also very traumatizing for us, very hectic and scary, because this wasn't a kind person going into having these issues. This was a very toxic person going into having these health issues, and then add on top of that prescription medication, which ramped up her mental illnesses, her issues that she was having with keeping her own emotional competence, like growing as an adult and being able to hold a safe space for growing children. That was not an option for us. So I was trying to keep my siblings quite literally safe and also fed and secure and clean. So laundry, house cleaning, things like that. I started doing all of that from the time I was about 11, 12 years old.
That's a heavy load. That's a heavy load for a young
Truly.
person. Can I ask?
Truly, no one should have to do that.
Yeah, and I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought, but this is my other work job kind of coming up here going, I see the way that people have to get their refills of certain medications and all the hoops, and sometimes they go days without medication because, oops, I need my doctor's appointment. During that time period, was it that strict, and was that also a contributing factor maybe to these mood swings? Do you know?
I wish that was true. I wish there was more regulation when it came to these things. When it first started out, it was things like migraine medication. And then it went to, there was a diagnosis for fibromyalgia, which, if you're not familiar with fibromyalgia, is widespread pain at the nerve. So the nerve itself is what is experiencing the pain, and that can change places. So what she was experiencing was widespread pain throughout her entire body. So when you go into pain management specifically, that's when you start getting prescription medications for things like higher dosage, like things with codeine, things that are narcotics, things that are like Schedule 1, Schedule 2 narcotics. And those things were coming into the house at a very, very quick pace. Not only that, there were also multiple doctors. So when you get into that, I have this problem, there were several areas that were affected in her body, including the widespread pain, the migraines, and then digestive issues. That equated to multiple doctors. And when you have multiple doctors who are giving multiple prescriptions, and there isn't a ton of regulation on that, there was lots of crossover. So no, unfortunately, there weren't any hoops to jump through. And what it escalated to eventually by the time I was about 15, 16 was morphine injections. And even before I had a driver's license, I was driving her to the emergency room for morphine injections almost 2 to 3 times per week. And I was sitting in the hospital with her 5, 6, 7 hours at a time. So no childhood, no freedom, no time. And I was also doing things illegally, like driving to the hospital without even a driver's permit. That also escalated later to lidocaine injections in her actual head, in the back of her head and in her neck. This was prescribed by a pain medicine doctor for the migraines, to alleviate the migraines. At 15 years old, the doctors trained me to give her those lidocaine injections. So from the time I was 15 to the time I was 17 years old, I was injecting my mother with lidocaine in her head. So no, there was no regulation. There was nobody watching over us. In fact, they were pushing it and putting it on me. So the point where now at 38 years old, I'm having these realizations like, oh my gosh, I was shooting up my mother. And I was perpetuating this drug abuse in my own home, because I was taught to like, she was sick. This is a sick person, so that this is what I'm supposed to do. There was no regulation. These doctors were sick of seeing my mother in the hospital. They did not like her energy or her attitude. Who would, and her negativity. And she would come in and she would be loud, and it was a very small hospital, small emergency room, and she was there 2, 3 times a week. So these people knew her by name. They knew what she was doing. They wanted her out of their hair. And so instead of getting real help, helping these children that were obviously, I was a child, they trained me to then take over that care so that we were coming into the hospital less often. So I'd feel even that it's the opposite.
So sad. It makes me glad that at least at this point in time, I know that I talk to people who get so frustrated at the amount of oversight when it comes to controlled medications, the way that they have to be called in every single month. They have to be seen by their doctor every 2 months or every 3 months, depending on what state they're in, or based on the doctor's, the rules the doctors are following. But certainly hearing a story like that, thank goodness for that degree of oversight. As frustrating as it might be at times, it's a nice safeguard.
I agree, especially when these things are so addictive. One example, I was in the hospital, one of these emergency room visits with my mother, and she was in the bed. She was getting the morphine injection, and the doctor came in. And when you're in the hospital, they don't let you take your own medication from outside. They bring you what you need. So she was in the hospital for 6, 7 hours. She was getting her second dose of medication. The doctor brought in this little cup, and it had the pills in it. And because I was the person who brought my mother her pills, I knew exactly what each one was. He made a joke about how if I had taken one of these out and put one of these other ones in, she would die. And I was mortified because I have made those mistakes and she was not dead. She has had those flipped here, flipped there, had this one instead of that one, or two of these, because I was a child. I didn't understand medication dosing, things like that. And if someone is screaming at you and you're scared, right? This is a fear situation, life and death at times. And exactly, because it's not like my brain was functioning in a fully aware state. I'm back in fight or flight. I'm scared for my life. I'm doing things quickly, and then making mistakes. So when he said that, it was like this massive wake up call for me, because I had made those mistakes. And then the other part of it was that she wasn't dead. So then these things, this mix up, she had become immune to. She could do that. That's not a drug combination that would kill her, actually, even if it was something that would kill an average person. She had become so immune at that point, that wasn't something that was going to kill her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you grew up in this environment with such high pressure, but then you went on with this situation, and I think you became a psychologist. So how on earth did you
So I
manage to
think
take care
probably
of your family and do that?
I think we grew up in below poverty level, single mom, 4 kids. We grew up in this situation where people were often passing judgment on me in my life and saying things like, oh, you'll never amount to anything because of where you're coming from, which that's so messed up, but it definitely does happen. And it was from family members. It was my mom's own sister saying things like, oh, you're going to end up homeless. Your mom's going to end up homeless, which we did end up homeless several times. So like those kind of things did happen. And so for me, I like, as I was growing up in this environment, I started to make these rules for myself. I mentioned earlier that I'm not an intrinsically motivated person. I'm not somebody who like naturally motivates. I have to like give myself motivating factors. So as I was a young kid dealing with this extremely traumatic situation, I started making myself a list. I started making myself a list of things that I would do. Because as a poor kid from the single mom, all these like really low socioeconomic status type things, they say like you'll have a lower IQ. There's just research has shown that that type of environment doesn't really give you a lot to go from. But I made these like rules for myself. I made this like list. I was like, okay, I'm going to have my family. I'm going to get my master's degree. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to buy a house. So I was kind of operating from this list. And I did go to therapy after my mom kicked me out. I ended up living with one of my best friends until I finished high school. Her mother let me live there with her. I showed up on a Tuesday night, 9 p.m. and she's like, I've been waiting for you. She always loved me and let me stay there until I graduated high school. And then I just went on to college and I bounced around. I literally moved 17 times in 2 years. But I just stuck to my list. I met my now husband. We got married. I was still going to school. I got pregnant with my first daughter and got my bachelor's degree 4 months later. I got my second baby and my master's degree 4 months after that. So I have my pictures of myself getting my bachelor's and my master's with 4-month-old baby girls, but then I had two at the second point. And I just kept operating from that list. What's interesting though is what happened when I finished the list. I ended up getting sick. I ended up getting really, really sick. And I ended up not really knowing what was wrong with me. I had my bachelor's degree, I had my master's degree, I had my kids, I had my house, I had my husband. I had all these things that I thought that I did the list. I should be happy now. And my body started to completely fall apart from adrenal fatigue, found out about Hashimoto's autoimmune, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, celiac disease, all within about 4 months of each other. And at this point I was 26 years old, two kids under 3. And then I had become the sick mom. I had become the exact antithesis of what I had intended to be. I was in bed. The doctors were telling me medicine for the rest of my life, illness, pain. That was it. That was going to be it. And so as you can see, like from the story from where I came from, that couldn't be it. That couldn't be it for me. So that's where this kind of where my journey, like the second part of my journey kind of starts.
Absolutely. So I have two questions. The first one I'm curious about is, do you know about what age your mother first had her illness come? Was your age about the same time that her age of the illness?
So she was actually a little bit older. Her youngest then when she got sick was 3 years old, and my oldest when I got sick was 3 years old. And we're about the same age, as we had our children about the same age. I had my daughter about the same age that my mom was. So she was about 10 years older than me when she started getting sick. As when I got sick around 26, she was probably around 36, 37.
Okay. So probably your more stressful childhood contributed maybe to earlier having those issues, I would guess. My second question
I'd
is,
imagine so.
what was the first thing that you thought of when you got hit with this news?
I just felt like I was a complete failure. Like truly, truly, I failed. I did everything opposite of the way that my mother did it, and I still ended up exactly where she was. And I was scared for myself. I honestly was so scared that that was really going to be my reality. But I had my master's degree. My education is in experimental psychology. So I'm an experimental psychologist and I do research. I did research as an undergrad and as a graduate student, all in the field of health. I think now looking back, I can see the reason I went into psychology was to see like to see if the mind could break the way that I thought that my mother's mind had broken. I thought that like when she got sick that like something broke and like she like snapped and became like a different person. It turns out that like no, she was always like this person and I just had masked a lot of things for her. But but I wanted to know like what happens to the brain, what happens to the mind, what makes people crazy, what makes people hurt their children or these types of things that happen to me. So I think I went to school really to find out like what happened to me. And then I did the research was all in nutrition and health because that's what I thought was wrong with my mom. I thought maybe I could save her. Maybe I could fix her and save her, right? Because then I could still have a mother and I don't now. So that's so hard and so sad to like be a mother and need someone who can like comfort you and be that care, but to not have it. So I think what really I tried to do was to fix her, to save her. And then I got sick, and then it was me that needed to be saved. It wasn't ever her that needed to be saved. She needed to save herself. We can't be taking other people's karma for them. So I needed to save myself. And I think what getting sick actually showed me was that I was the top priority. I am the one that needs to be healed. I am the one that is deserving of healing. And because of my education, because I was a psychology professor at the time, my email address bought me the current research. So if you are looking for like PubMed or you want to learn like what are the researchers doing right now and they're publishing, it's minimum $60. Minimum, you can go on Google Scholar. It's a separate Google Scholar, and you can type in autoimmune disease and what are the current things that are happening in autoimmune disease, Hashimoto, celiac disease, and all this research is going to come up. But if you try to click on the PDF, you're going to be hit with a bill, $400, $500, $800, thousands of dollars, because they have to get paid for the research.
Well, I get that.
Yes. So it's not accessible, right? It's not accessible to the population. It really isn't. Most people wouldn't even know how to read it anyways. It's written as a scientific journal. It has an abstract. It talks about what they actually did in their study, and then it talks about what their conclusion, what they came to, the research, the findings that they had. And because I used to have to write those, because I used to have to do that, that's something I could read. It was something I could understand. And I feel really, really blessed because my education, yes, it opened these doors for me. So I was able to make a plan for myself to heal, even in that really weakened state, because I was in bed. Go ahead.
I was going to say, first of all, taking that education to first of all understand everything that happened to you growing up, and to still want to help your mother, that coming from a place of love, I think that's beautiful. And I would call it serendipity that you had that under your belt, so that you had that to help yourself when it hit you, that you could then use that education to develop a plan for yourself, which I know brings us into more of our conversation here. I can see that you're feeling emotional about this. And it's a very big
It's such
thing.
an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Yes. And it does all kind of lead into the next thing. It's like, okay, this dealing with the sick mother and dealing with the trauma and dealing with the drugs and then dealing with like learning about psychology and then getting sick.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I still always wanted to turn it around. I still always wanted to help the moms. I still do really want to help the moms, because I think that if we can heal ourselves and we can have that good energy, then we can be and serve more our families and the people that we serve in that way, if we're coming from that place of healed and not broken and not sick, right?
Well, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
this is probably a poor analogy, but it's like when you're on an airplane and they say put on the airbag first before you can help the person next to you. If you're not feeling well yourself, how can you possibly help the other person?
Oh my gosh, that is so true. But in my childlike mind, before I was really healed in my mind, I thought that I needed to heal her. I thought that it was my responsibility then to heal her. And that probably part of that came from the brainwashing of having to raise my sisters, and thinking that she was my responsibility and that her emotions were my responsibility, which obviously they are not. And if that is something that anyone feels, it is not true. And so the biggest blessing that came out of my illnesses was really just learning how to focus on me and learning how to focus on how to make myself better. And then I didn't even cut my mom out of my life for a really long time. I thought If I could set boundaries with her, I could still help her. Yeah. And when I got the celiac diagnosis, I had her checked and she had celiac disease. So I taught her how to cut out the foods because I thought, oh, maybe the gluten will like help her mental stability. It still didn't change the patterns. We still didn't end up with safety.
Deeply
And then I
ingrained.
did end up having to end that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was after my son was born that I was able to cut that connection. I think for some reason, just having a son and loving my children the way that I love them, and just seeing how easy it is to love kids, like just wow, you really just didn't do.
Yeah.
She didn't do a good job.
Right. Well, and like you and I were talking about, it became a matter of protecting yourself and them. It wasn't simply cutting off someone who was inconvenient. Because I do believe you truly do love your mother, even now. It's simply a matter of protecting yourself and protecting your family from someone who is not healthy. For probably the best way to put this.
Yes. And for me, one of my biggest goals in life is to just live a really peaceful life. Like we had so much chaos and so much turmoil and uncertainty. So for me as an adult, the thing that I'm trying to foster the most is peace. And so the people in my life that don't bring peace, they don't get to stay. It's a privilege to be in my life. And she doesn't bring peace. It's very chaotic. And so, yeah, I do choose to keep myself at a peace and also love from afar. Like if I can love and not have hate and not have hurt in my heart, but I can send love, that feels like such a better place to be.
Absolutely. I'm sure if she was someone who was motivated to make positive changes and could be with you in a peaceful way, then you would be ecstatic to have her in your life. But
what a dream. What a dream. Who doesn't want a mom?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we have to make those positive changes. We can't bring negativity with us if we want to be part of a family. We need to have that positive environment. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation, and that's not what we're here to talk about, right? It's just
I completely agree. Yes, no, and I also believe that having that peace and having that like feeling of love is the only place we can really heal from our physical body. Because if you're trying to heal your physical body, but you're in a chaotic environment and there's people around that are bringing you that chaos and negativity, that's the opposite of a healing environment. And that's another thing I had to learn, that if I really wanted to feel good, if I really wanted to have energy all day, I needed to make sure that the people who are in my circle are respectful of that.
Absolutely. And it's really scientifically based. No education myself here, but it's been such an education talking to people like you on these podcasts. And so there was an interview I did, sometime in the last month. I've talked to so many people, but I had this fascinating lady who was a psychologist who was talking about, I think it had something to do with the bomb that was dropped in Japan during the I think it was the Second World War. Maybe it was the first. Anyway, there were these survivors, and they had to keep hidden the fact that they had been, affected by the bomb because they couldn't have children, and so they were not allowed to reveal that they had been part of that. But then there were also people that could have children, but they still had to keep that secret. But the generations who were affected by the war, the stress, all the goodness. I wish I had done my research before. If I'd known we were going to talk about this, I might have done some research about this. But something about the stress and the things that they underwent, it affected their body chemistry, which in turn affected the next generation's body chemistry, which I found fascinating. I never knew that was possible. Part of me says that makes sense because I'm a Bible reader, and there's something in my Bible training that goes, okay, that would make sense. But that's, again, another story, another conversation. But scientifically, I wasn't aware that there was actually a scientific basis for that beyond my Bible education.
Yes.
So
Yes, absolutely. And so when we can support ourselves in that way, that's so empowering. You're giving yourself your power back. You're taking your energy back and saying, I am worthy, the most worthy of my healing and my energy and my attention. And like preparing the foods, like you brought up in the beginning, like eating healthy food, that takes so much time. You actually have to like plan and prepare and make sure that you have these things on hand. And so that type of preparation, that takes your energy. And if you're utilizing your energy on people that are toxic and negative and bringing in this chaos, you're not getting to utilize that for yourself. And it's not selfish if we can't even help anybody if we're dead, right? Because we didn't put the oxygen mask on. And it's like, okay, well, now you can't help anyone.
Exactly. Although I think I have to disagree with you just a teeny bit on the time amount for eating healthy. I mean, a good meal can take time to prepare. Don't get me wrong. I don't disagree on that point.
Yeah.
But when you have the items on hand, you know, the healthy types of oils like your coconut oil and your olive oil and your avocado oil instead of the bad oils, when you have your fresh fruits and vegetables. I mean, what's it take 20 minutes to roast vegetables and have a meat? I mean, just last night,
Yeah.
I made a nice meal for a friend who was visiting town. Roasted vegetables and the meat took maybe 30 minutes. I made some, lamb chops and some roasted vegetables. And I did put special effort into a potato dish. That took the longest to make. But that was, an extra just because I care about this friend. So I'm going to do this extra effort for you. But really, healthy meal doesn't necessarily have to take a lot of time if we're prepared. Right?
True. You're totally right.
It's all
No,
mindset.
you're totally right. Yes. And there's so many like 15-minute meals, 10-minute meals out there. I was just watching a video last night on Bon Appetit on their YouTube channel. It was like 5 cooks shared their favorite 5-minute meal. And it was so healthy, so delicious. And it really was like I got home from work. I needed to whip something up real quick. Yes, if you have the things, of course.
Absolutely.
But I mean, you do need the energy. You do need to take the time for yourself. And if we're wasting our time on people who aren't deserving or respectful, then we're not going to be spending that time helping ourselves.
Absolutely. No, you've got to, oh goodness, I can't think of a good illustration, but you have to choose wisely. You have to choose to put your focus energy where it's going to do the most good. So
I agree. And that ultimately is why I ended up ending the relationship with my family, with those family members and my mother and my father, people who were just not supportive of me taking that time for myself to meet my needs. Well, then that did end those relationships.
But it sounds like your husband must have been very supportive, I'm guessing, while you figured out your health needs and then proceeded
somewhat.
to do some... No? Okay, tell us about that.
Yeah, somewhat. Oh my goodness. I find that my husband is really, really good at like once I've been doing something for a little while, like coming in and doing the same thing. But I often have to show like, no, I am going to stick to this and I am going to be disciplined before it's like he
Prove
doesn't
it.
have that like blind faith. He like needs to, yeah, prove it. Yeah, prove it. And so with this, yes. So with the celiac diagnosis, I actually cut gluten out right away. Like right the day after my doctor told me about the celiac diagnosis, I cut gluten out. My husband, it took about a year for him and the rest of my family members to cut out the gluten. And it came because I actually found this article that said, if you eat some sort of gluten, you have to brush your teeth and it takes 4 hours to be removed enough from the mouth to kiss someone else who has celiac disease. Because that is enough to be cross-contamination to affect someone with celiac disease.
Really?
When I brought that to my husband, when I said, you cannot kiss me for 4 hours and you have to brush your teeth after you eat gluten and then wait 4 hours, he cut it out. Like the next day it was done. He was like, no way, I'm never. So then our household went gluten-free about a year later.
So I have to ask.
So yes,
do we love Pamela's products for like pancakes? Is that what we do? I love Pamela's products.
We totally use Pamela's. Yes.
I do it because of the taste.
Specifically, we buy the pancake mix.
But I just like the taste.
And it's high fiber, high protein. Yes, so good too. It's good for you.
Yeah. I do it because my best friend is gluten-free,
and my kids love it. See, it's people like you, people being accommodating like that. That's so nice. My best friend keeps a frozen gluten-free pizza in her freezer,
Some of
and
them are
that it
really
warms my
good.
heart. It like makes me so happy.
I
Yeah.
mean,
And it just makes me feel so good. Like I know I can eat there.
yeah, absolutely. You know, the fact that some
That's
of
so
them taste
cute.
better than the regular stuff. Aldi has a
Yes.
great cauliflower crust pizza.
Yes.
I will buy that before I buy any other
Yes.
pizza around. Or Donato's Pizza, I order their cauliflower crust pizza, and I get my own toppings because I'm picky about what I like. But I love the cauliflower crust stuff. I mean, who wants regular
Yes.
yeast? I mean, not to say I will eat it. If someone orders a pizza, I'll eat a regular slice of pizza. Or if I'm at Costco, I will eat a regular slice of pizza. But if I'm ordering for
Oh.
myself, if I'm at home, I'm getting cauliflower crust because I like the way it tastes. So, yeah.
So we do that too. That's so good. And so, yeah, it's been, I guess, 9 years now, maybe 10 years since the celiac diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
2015, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's been about 10 years and they have so much more things now. They have so many more, they're so much more accommodating. We do the Trader Joe's cauliflower crust pizza, and
Yeah.
that's what we do on Friday nights. So it's like such a fun thing for my family.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, my kids were little when I ended up switching over. Like I said, my daughter was only 3 when I got diagnosed, and the other one was 15 months. So two of them did have gluten for the first couple of years of their life, and then they don't even remember. They literally don't even remember that life. And then my son, he always has been gluten free. So my household is just perfectly accommodating for me. And we did do genetic testing and find out that they do have celiac markers. So to not eat the gluten will make it so that they never develop celiac disease. So that's something that we do to accommodate the family and make sure that everyone's healthy. Um, yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't know about you. So I'm going to tell myself a few years back, and I have to get back on track because life got in my way, and I am now back to a point where I can do this again. But I went and saw, well, stumbled upon the term functional nutritionist. I had never heard it before, but it was like, what on earth is a functional nutritionist? And I was researching, like, what is this? Turned out that a chiropractor I was seeing happened to be a functional nutritionist after I researched and realized, oh, this is something I want to do. And so he had headed me in the right direction to change some of the things I was doing so that I could lose weight naturally. And I was super happy with him. We had one consultation, and then he allowed me to send him some emails to ask some questions as I had them. And I only had a few questions, so I wasn't too much of a bother to him. But one of the things that I found was that I really didn't have to make huge changes. A lot of the things I had already done prior, because of my best friend, who with her very healthy eating habits had gradually kind of put me in that direction anyway. I already really liked vegetables. I really liked eating meats and had done keto in the past. And so I was kind of in that direction already. And so for me, it was mainly about cutting out sugars, the breads, and any kind of sweet stuff. And that, that type of thing. So trying to change my food that way was where I personally had to maybe adjust. Other people might have to make other adjustments. But that's why you go see your functional nutritionist and you have that conversation. But that was a great investment in my life, and I can't wait to get back on track now that my life has resumed some semblance of normal. But one of the things initially, because I have a sweet tooth. I was raised by a mama who was all about baking pies and cakes, and that was my childhood. It was all about the desserts. So one of the things I found as a substitute was heavy whipping cream whipped with organic monk fruit, which again, my best friend, the one who put me onto Pamela's products, was the one who introduced me to organic monk fruit drops. 2 or 3 drops, a little bit of nothing in that ready whip with some strawberries or blueberries, and that took care of my sweet tooth. And oh my goodness, I loved it. And there got to a point where I didn't even need that. I didn't need sweets whatsoever, but oh my goodness, loved it. functional nutrition, which I believe
Yes.
you know something about.
Yes, I would highly recommend if someone was dealing with a health journey and they were at the beginning, kind of like staring at the beginning of autoimmune diagnosis, things like this. I love the idea of going to functional medicine practitioners. So anybody who kind of has that beginning title, so functional medicine doctor, functional medicine nutritionist, chiropractor, things like that, what they're going to be looking at is the body as a whole. So what I mentioned earlier in my story about my mother when she had migraines, gut issues, and the hernia, she ended up at 3 different doctors. And none of those people were functional medicine doctors because they were not looking at the body as a whole. They were saying, okay, you have migraines, we'll treat the head. Okay, you have gut issues, we'll treat the gut. When you go to functional medicine doctors, they look at you as a whole entire picture. They look at your hormones as a whole. They look at your energy as a whole. And they ask you questions like, what is your sleep like? What is your stress like? Can you alleviate stress in anywhere in your life? Can you increase your sleep hours? They will work on those functional or foundational issues. And then when you look for a foundation or a functional nutritionist, they'll help guide you on more of like the food and the diet side of things, where the doctors are going to be able to prescribe medication. One thing that I've not really talked about much is that when I was going through my healing journey, it was about 27 months, and I stumbled across this podcast interview on a podcast about autoimmune disease specifically. And it was a doctor who was talking about this drug, naltrexone, which is used for addicts when they're coming off of things like heroin. Because when you come off of heroin, there's like this lack of endorphins that's so dramatic that it like splits them, and it makes it very challenging for them to come off of this drug. So what they do is they give, what this doctor was explaining on this podcast episode was that they give these patients really high doses of this drug, naltrexone, which increases endorphins in the body, which makes it easier for them to come off of the drug without having so many withdrawal symptoms. And this is done in an actual controlled setting with doctors, with psychologists. And this is, you're most likely going to see this in a rehab facility. What he was talking about in regards to autoimmune patients is that when you are diagnosed with autoimmune disease, you often have a very low level of endorphins. When you have low endorphins, you don't have energy, you don't have happiness, you don't have the ability to like get up and do things that make you happy. It's kind of like depression a little bit, where depression we look at more like serotonin. In this case, he's looking at the endorphins. How do we actually get more endorphins? So it turns out taking naltrexone at a really low dose, 4 milligrams. So when they're doing it for drug patients, it's up in like the 50s to 200. For an autoimmune patient, they were saying very low dose, 4 milligrams of naltrexone will help increase your endorphins, which will then give you the ability to make these positive changes on your journey. And it's not meant to be done long term. It was like a very short term thing, 6 months. I needed a doctor to prescribe that to me. I needed someone who was going to be able to find a way to get me a small dose of it in my town. So I started looking up functional medicine doctors. I was able to find one, and I was able to bring this research, and I was able to get a integrative medicine pharmacy to make the small dose, and I was able to take it for 6 months. Doing that tiny bit, I believe, gave me the energy to make the food that I needed to make on these detox and elimination diets and make the changes that I needed to make. It was kind of like this buffer of building up my endorphins on the back end. There's no side effects other than like weird dreams a little bit, which is not any weirder than pregnancy dreams. So it kind of felt a little bit like that. And there were no other side effects. So it was just a matter of like on this back end, building up endorphins for a 6-month period. And I needed a functional medicine doctor to do that. So I stumbled upon these people that had a practice, and they were able to do the whole body. They had a functional medicine doctor, a chiropractor, and nutritionist all in one building. And I was able to get so much support for my own healing journey when I was diagnosed. And that's why I was able to find and lean on this functional practice. I think it's so important. It does end up costing more money. It's not usually it's not usually covered by even HMOs or PPOs. It's usually something that you have to come out of pocket for because they're not following all those rules and guidelines. They're kind of doing things their own way. They're using vitamins, they're using supplements instead of drugs. So that's what I was really looking for. And it really helped me. It sounds like it really helped you. We had a similar experience with that healing part.
Yes, we did. And I apologize in advance. Cat number 2 might be making a visit here. So if that happens, my apologies to the audience and to you. but hopefully he'll take a detour. But so you had mentioned beforehand something about an equation for how long a person is sick versus how long it might take to make some changes, and I think that was very interesting. Would you like to share that with our audience?
Yes. I would absolutely love that. Thank you so much for asking. When I was looking into healing myself, I wanted to give myself, like you said, a formula or like a timeline to be able to say, okay, I'm not healthy now. I'm very sick now. I have all this pain now, but I want to be able to give myself, like, it's going to take me this much time. So I was researching, and I ended up stumbling upon Herring's Law of the Cure. And Herring's Law of the Cure stated as a theory that the body takes 1 month for every year to heal. So if it is, say, for instance, you've been sick for 20 years, it would require 1 month for each of those years, 20 months then to repair the tissue. He said that the body repairs itself from the inside out, so the internal organs to the skin, and then from the heart up and back. So we've got like heart healing first before we're going to brain and stomach, etc. And he suggested that the body is naturally capable of healing itself, which we do know from research now that the body regenerates, the cells regenerate. There are some cells in the stomach that are repaired every hour. So I took that information and I was able to say to myself, okay, I'd been sick for 27 years. I really truly felt like I had been sick my whole life. And it was going to take me 27 months to heal. And I was able to give myself that formula. And somebody myself, who is not so intrinsically motivated, like I don't motivate internally, like, oh, I just want to heal because I want to heal. I actually needed external motivation. So I had my husband draw me a tattoo that I really wanted. And I put that tattoo in my wallet and I told myself when my body was strong enough to heal a wound, then I would get that tattoo. And it did take about 2.5 years to do that before I was able to get that tattoo. And my body did heal so quickly. And I was just so proud of myself. But it did take 27 months. And those 27 months were challenging. And I had to adhere to healing modalities, going to the chiropractor, taking supplements, really dialed in on high quality nutrient dense foods like bone broth and really nutrient dense soups. And I did organ meats to heal my organs. So I did take action, very intentional action. Pretty much from that point on, I still care for myself this way. I still take care of myself this way. I still listen to my body this way. And I did take that 27 months to go ahead and heal my body. People noticed those changes and I went ahead and started helping other people as well. Got certified in nutrition consultant and did start helping people heal themselves of autoimmune disease. And once I had helped about 100 people one-on-one, I had classes and bigger teaching groups and things like that. But one-on-one, a little over 100 people, that's when I actually decided to write my book because I felt like there was so much out there that was like necessary for people to know. Things like Herring's Law of the Cure, things like it's going to take time, but there's lots of tools and lots of things that you can do. I didn't feel sick for 27 months. I just knew that it would take 27 months to feel better. Every day my energy got better. Every day my mood got better. Every day my mental health got better. So it wasn't like I was sick that whole 27 months. I just knew that that was the timeline at which I would be where I wanted to be.
Now, you had mentioned about how human nature, we want to make all these changes all at the same time and we set ourselves up for failure. So you had mentioned about maybe
Yes.
making changes more gradually. I would love for you to speak to that.
Yes. I absolutely love the book, The Power of Habit. So The Power of Habit is the science and the research behind actually building habits. And I would love for everybody to read that book. It was such a life changer, game changer for me, because what it taught me was that it's almost impossible to change your habits. So what that means is it's not like this thing that you're like, oh, I'm a failure because I couldn't change my habits. Oh, I'm doing so bad. You're literally going up against it almost impossible task. So in order to do that, what they recommend in the book is never trying to change more than one habit at a time, ever, because we can't anyways. It's so hard. The brain is resistant to change. And actually, that is one of the names of the chapter titles in one of my books, like in my book, The Brain is Resistant to Change, because the brain will actively fight against keeping you in the exact same place that you are because change equals death, ego death. It equals death to your routine. It equals death to your life. So we will actively fight against it. The other really interesting thing about the brain is that we have two hemispheres. So you can actually argue with yourself to keep yourself stuck. Yes, me too. Me too. Okay, I'm gonna get up at 5 a.m. and I'm gonna exercise and I'm gonna do all these things. What happens right when that alarm clock goes off? The other side of the brain is going, well, I didn't really sleep that well. I didn't get my workout clothes ready. I'm running a little bit late. We can argue with ourselves. So you actually have to have like right? You actually have to have like a very specific why. For me, it was I don't want to be the sick mom because I was raised by a sick mom and I can't repeat that pattern and that cycle. I needed to be the chain breaker. I needed to do something different. That why was so strong that there was no other choice I had but to heal. So I had to. I was going to keep going, right? Okay, exactly, Zoe, exactly. And so we cannot try to make these big changes all at once. When you join a program and they're like, we're going to change your diet, we're going to change your food, we're going to change your sleep. Like, actually, no. You can pick one thing and you can focus on that one thing for 21 to 60 days. 21 to 60 days. That's what The Power of Habit, this book, Charles Duhigg, he recommends. And they say 21 to 60 days is how you build a habit in the brain, how it then becomes like automatic. So what that means is it's not using any energy. And the way that I like to represent this is by talking about mice studies. When they study mice in a maze, the very first time they put them in a maze and they try to track them and they see like, oh, where's the cheese? And they're monitoring their brain activity. Every single part of their brain is lit up. There's a lot of energy going on. There's a lot of brain activity. Yes. The 30th, 40th, 50th time they make it through the maze, there's no brain activity because it has become a habit and they no longer need energy to do the habit. So you can't do more than one habit at a time because your brain physically doesn't have enough energy to sustain it. So pick one thing. And if it really is a health thing, if you really are dealing with like autoimmune disease, my number one absolute thing to focus on is sleep. You only repair yourself in sleep. You only repair cells during sleep. So if you want to heal and you can only focus on one thing, then I would focus on sleep. And there's a really amazing paleo doctor. She goes by the Paleo Mom, but her name is Dr. Sarah Ballantyne with a B, Ballantyne. And she has on her website a sleep course. It's completely free and you can train yourself how to sleep and how to get more sleep and how to fall asleep faster. If you struggle with insomnia, can't fall asleep, or you struggle with the insomnia of can't stay asleep, this is a training program that she has that's free. And you can teach yourself and you can train yourself how to sleep and how to make positive sleep habits. I have done this for myself. I followed her program and I trained myself to sleep because that's the only time we can repair ourselves. If you are struggling with illness and you want to repair, sleep more and just focus on that for a month. And then when you are sleeping so well and things are going great, then you change your diet. And maybe that's one thing, cutting out sugar or cutting out caffeine or cutting back to 2 cups of coffee for your adrenals. Maybe it's that, but 21 to 60 days of one thing. And if you have like a different person in mind, like I want to be somebody who's like a millionaire. I want to have all these millionaire habits. I know for me, it's going to take me 1,000, 2,000 habits to get to that person that I want to be. So I can set myself that timeline and I can say, okay, if it's 1,000 things that I want to do better, then it's going to take me 1,000 months to build those habits. Be realistic. That's what it actually takes. And when we try to do all these things at once, on Monday, I'm going to diet, I'm going to exercise, I'm going to sleep. No, you will not. It will feel like failure. It will feel like two sides of your brain having completely different conversations. That is what's happening. And it won't happen. The bubble will burst because it's not foundational. It's not longevity.
So it sounds like there's kind of maybe two equations we need to take into account then. The number of years you've been unwell, and then take into account how many habits you need to form, and then doing a reconciliation for the realistic amount of months. Is that about right?
Yes, that made my nerd brain so happy. That like I was seeing Excel spreadsheets. That made me geeked out. Yes.
Yeah, my
Yes.
dad probably would have been happy with that too. My dad thinks
I
that
loved
way.
it. I loved the way you said that. I think that's so perfect. Oh, that's how I think too. And if you can correspond these things, and then what that gives you, even if you're not, I mean, obviously, like, not everybody's going to jump out and get an Excel spreadsheet and say, like, okay, 27 months, these are the habits, right? But if you could, I feel like what it would give you is this weight lifted off your shoulders, because here's what the gift that gives you: it's grace. You don't have to do everything all at once, because Sharissa told me I can't. Sorry, I can only do one thing at a time. And what that gives you is freedom to do one thing well until it is habit, and then do another thing well until it is habit.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. It's like if you're planning a road trip, you're not going to instantly arrive at Disneyland. You're going to plot your course, realize you're going to take breaks along the way, you're going to have to stop for gasoline, whatever the case. It's going to take you so many hours of driving and breaks to reach Disneyland.
Right.
It's the same thing. You're plotting your course,
Exactly.
planning the mileage, etc., etc. Maybe we do it a little more fast with our computers and phones, but it's essentially the same process.
Exactly. And there's so much freedom in that, because now you don't have to do it all at once. Now you don't have to clear hours in your schedule every day. One of the books I read, the Miracle Morning, the Miracle Morning with Hal Elrod. It was 5 things that you can do in the morning. And if you were to follow the book exactly the way that it is, you do like journaling, exercising, reading. There's an analogy that goes along with it, and you can do it in 5 minutes, but you would take like an hour to do this thing. And I tried it. I was like, oh, I'm going to do the Miracle Morning. It's one thing. It's not one thing. It's 5 things. And it took months for me to incorporate all 5 things. And it never, ever ended up being in the 1 hour. Ever. It could never, because it could never. I have children. They want their drinks. Oh no, I'm doing my Miracle Morning. Sorry. I have my hour. It never could have worked. But now, like right before I go to bed, I do a little bit of journaling. I walk my dog, for my exercise. Right when I wake up, I read for 30 minutes. Like, now I've incorporated all of these habits throughout my day it took 10 years. Okay. This isn't something I read yesterday. I read that 10 years ago. And I've now incorporated each of those 5 things into my day in a way that makes sense for me. And now I have those habits because they're habits, but not because I tried to do them all at once. I failed.
No,
I failed
I get
miserably.
You. And I've got to give you props here, because I did this. I think we might have done the same thing here, because again, not internally motivated, right? So I did about 2 years ago. I thought, I have a house. I'm no longer beholden to pay a landlord, pet rent. I could probably get a dog. And where I won't go for a walk for my own benefit, I will have mercy on a dog and I will take the dog for a walk. Therefore, I will get my exercise. I'm betting you probably had a similar thought process.
100%. And I struggle so much to stay disciplined in a workout practice because I hate working out. I do it for my mental health. I work out for depression and anxiety because research shows 20 minutes a day is like taking a serotonin pill. So like, I do that for my mental health, not because I want to. It's so hard. And so if I can just be like, yeah, my 20 minutes is my dog today. Yes, 100%. Yes.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I walk for my dog's sake, not for mine. I know I'll benefit, but it's all about the dog.
No. Yes, and I do feel better after. Thanks a lot. But also, like, I'm very grateful for the reason, the external motivator. I need that. When I first learned about extrinsically motivated and intrinsically motivated, I was like, I'm not intrinsically motivated to do anything.
Nope, I'm not sure that I am
Eat
either.
pad thai and watch Netflix. That's it. Yeah, no.
Exactly.
I want to watch like Love is Blind on repeat, and I want to have pad thai delivered to the house. It is the opposite of what I do if I just listened to what I was intrinsically motivated to do. Nothing would have gotten done.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so easy just to sit and vegetate and just do nothing.
I wish we could. Dang it. Yes. No, it's not that.
Than women
and
of
I am motivated.
Generations. We're much too busy.
So true. Oh, that is so true. It is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I do like the idea of, just to come back to it, like one of my motivators is supporting women and is supporting moms. And like, because I couldn't heal my own mother, I wrote my book really truly to get out there to the moms, like, so, or like the women, right? We're not being cared for. We got to care for ourselves. And I wanted to give people those tools. So really, there, even that feels like an external motivation, because it really didn't come from inside me. It comes from, I don't want any other kids to go through what I went through.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. If any generation ever needed it, our generation does. Because look at the last, let's say, two generations of women. Two generations of women ago, women's job was to be homemakers. That was their job. Be at home, take care of the house, take care of the kids. That was the full-time job. Our mother's generation started to work outside the home, but not to, but they didn't have jobs that were high powered career women. It was maybe just a little bit low stress jobs outside the home. I think
Right.
we can agree on that for the most part. And then our
Agreed. Yeah,
generation
absolutely.
has runs the whole gamut. There are some low stress jobs, but most of us are in high pressure, high stress jobs, and we still have the full time job at home. And then the added stress of most of us now may not even have a spouse. We might be single mothers with kids and all
Right.
this. On top of all that, we women have never been under as much stress and pressure, I don't think, in history as women of our generation are. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you disagree, but I don't know.
No, I
Do you
totally
disagree?
agree, because it's both now.
Yeah.
It's no, I completely agree. I'm the CEO of my own company. I own two businesses and I run myself as an author business. So three businesses. I work from home, but I homeschool my children, and I'm still doing, I made sourdough bread yesterday, and like I still am making all my meals and things like that. So
Yeah.
so no, I do feel like the stress is astronomical. It really is. And if I can do anything to help alleviate that and teach people, like, okay, it's one habit at a time. We're not going to get to it all in one day. It's going to take months, maybe years, not days, and give that hope, that you can do both and kind of heal and bring that down and bring the, the healing and the energy up, so we can rise to this, because we do have to do all these things.
Now, we've mentioned many books throughout this whole conversation. The only book we haven't mentioned the title of is your book. And I think it's so important that we let people know the title of your book, because even though you first published it 10 years ago, it's back. It was reprinted in 2022, and it has so much valuable information. Personally thinking about buying a copy myself, and I sometimes I'm very intrigued by my guests, and I'm like, ooh, that's a book I should get. But this one I might actually get because I'm like, there's probably some useful
Oh,
tips and tools for me. I might actually get this one. So,
thank you so much for saying that, Zoe. I so appreciate it. And it was definitely a labor of love. So I so appreciate that. My book is called Journey Back to Health. Just seems pretty fitting. Journey Back to Health. And then it is the alternative tools for healing the body. So it's 18 chapters. Each chapter is a different types of tools. So sleep, stress, healing the mind, learning about habits. And then the last chapter in the book is actually an appendix, and it is a workbook that you can actually use right in the book, or you can print it up for free on the website. There's the link, sharissabradley.com/book. You can print that right there on the website as many times as you want. And then you can work the book. You can use it as a tool and as a guide to empowering yourself and taking your power back, and set that guideline. Set right, print it out right at the top of it. Okay, I've been sick for 15 years. It's going to take me 15 months. And then start working it and take your power back, and get a team. You can definitely have a team, functional medicine doctors, chiropractors, all these people that can help you with tests, etc. And I definitely didn't do it alone. I definitely had a team. But the book is there to help guide you and support you on that journey. Just empower yourself. Absolutely.
Bradley. Now, is this in print only, or is it also like an audiobook format?
It's actually everywhere. So you can get this book in print, ebook. Well, it's like totally blended. Print, ebook, and Audible. I read it myself on Audible. So
Cool.
so it's actually available everywhere. My friends that are ADHD, they have asked me specifically, like, please don't make me pick up a book and read. So no, you do not have to. You can definitely listen to that as well. And then the book, like I said, you can get that extras thing for free no matter what. It's just right there on the website. So
Right.
even if you're just wanting to take your power back and start, go for it.
Sounds good. And for those listeners who are listening on someplace other than Spotify and who cannot see the website, it is sharissabradley.com. Sharissa being spelled Sharissa, Bradley.com. So for our non-visual listeners. But be sure to check out that website if you'd like a copy of the, was it checklist you said? That's also in the book.
Yes, there's the guide that there. Yes, it's actually there. Yeah, you can find links to the book, links to all my social media, everything on sharissabradley.com. Yes, thank you.
Sounds good. So yeah, I'm the kind of person who usually will tiptoe into something first in audiobook format on a road trip because that's where my concentration is. I'm more likely to give my focus when I'm driving to something that's educational. That's actually the first time I heard the functional nutritionist thing.
Me too.
I was listening to a health something on a road trip because I had the focus. And then I'm like, okay, let me look into this. And then sometimes,
that
is interesting enough, then I will also buy the book.
Yeah, I do the same thing, especially with nonfiction. If it's nonfiction, I love to listen when I'm driving. I do the same thing. I love that. Yes, and it is available, so you can totally do that.
Exactly. We just have the things that work for us, and yeah, I'm just one of those type of people. And same thing for audiobooks for like fiction type stuff. I discovered a long time ago that for me, for when it comes to sleep, the only way that I'm going to sleep is if I can stop this from working, if I can get my mind to turn off, stop thinking. So I discovered if I had a book that I knew backwards, forwards, and sideways, I could stop thinking within a matter of minutes. And so I do an audiobook at night, and I hear maybe 2 or 3 pages of an audiobook, and I'm out. It's like,
amazing. That's such a good tip.
Yep. So yeah, it works for me. I've suggested to my sister and others, and sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, but you know what? Seriously, I hear the audiobook, right back asleep. Turn off the brain. Maybe it doesn't work for everyone, but I'm 50 something. I'm happy with it. Hopefully it'll keep on working for me. I really enjoyed talking to you. And I don't know if I forewarned you. I usually try to forewarn my guests. I usually ask my guests to prepare a question for future guests, and they in turn have left a question for you. So I'm going to go to my list of questions from previous guests. We've got random questions. Let me see if I can find the last random question. I switched notebooks recently, so I've got to find the most recent random question. I had one that's reserved for the next time I have a male guest. I'm like, well, that can't ask you that one. That one's reserved for the next guy we have on.
I love this. What a neat idea.
Yeah. I have to say, I borrowed it. My best friend had me listen to this podcast that was health related. It was a health podcast. And that guy started this, and I thought, ooh, that's great. I'm so stealing that idea. And so I did, Let me see. I'm going to find my other list of questions here, and if not, I'll make up my own question. But another second. I don't like dead air, but if we have to have dead air for a second, then so be it. Okay. Well, you're going to get a question that's pure Zoey. All right. So,
okay.
What you're going to get. Ha, I've got it. This is going to be an off-the-wall crazy question. If you could be any creature in the ocean, what would you be?
Oh, okay. I actually have an answer to this that is book related also. The book is The Other Minds, and I would be an octopus. And the reason for that is because they are so dang cool, and most of their neurons, like we have most of our neurons in our brain, their neurons are like in their body. So their arms are like brains. It's like they have like 8 brains instead of 1 brain. And also they can shrink down to the size of their eyeball, which I think is insane. Like they can go through anything that is the size of their eyeball because that's how small they can get. So how freaking cool is that?
Did not know that.
And then the book that I learned that from was The Other Mind. So I definitely recommend it.
Very cool. I had no idea when I was asking that question I was going to get such a cool answer. Well, talk about serendipity. I will give you a moment to consider possible questions for the next guest.
Okay, well, I think because I am like a book girly, right, and a publisher, I am going to ask, what is one book that everyone should read in their lifetime? And I'm excited to hear it too, because I can't wait to see what they say.
In my mind, I'm thinking The Count of Monte Cristo. But that's just...
Oh, I'll try. Okay,
it's a personal favorite. It's one of many personal favorites, but... I
haven't read it yet. I'm going to have to... I'll find it and I'll read it. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent book myself, but... Yeah. There's other people probably listening to the podcast going, no, it's this book or that book, but that's okay. We all have things and, you know... There's a lot of...
That's what's so good to hear about, because then I get perspective, right?
Exactly. I'll be curious to see what the answer is from our next guest, what book they'll say. And it can't be their own book. That's not allowed. It has to be someone else's book.
No.
We got to have some rules here.
Yeah.
Sharissa, it's been such a pleasure having you. Thank you for joining us. And maybe we'll get a chance to talk again. Maybe any other books maybe in the future intending to write, or any...
Yeah, absolutely. I would love that. Thank you.
Okay. Let me ask, what do you do now? I mean, other than promoting this book, what do you do these days?
Okay, so I own a publishing house, 52 Press, so I publish memoirs. And I also own a company called Project Seed Money, which is a community initiative that helps women get connected to grant funding. So I teach grant funding workshops. I have like a very vast resources section on the Project Seed Money website that teaches women how to find grants. There's lists of grants on the bulletin. On my homepage of the website, there's a bulletin board that you can immediately click to find grants for actually financing and funding the projects that you're working on. So that's Project Seed Money. That is my like passion and my dream. And I have a podcast for that. I interview authors and I interview industry professionals. And then for 52 Press, for my publishing house, I just publish memoirs, educational memoirs, like similar to my own, where it's part of your life, but you're also teaching something as well.
Wow. Okay. Well, very cool. I'm glad I asked that question. You and I might have to talk offline. Well, thank you again. Thank you for coming. Let me go ahead and end the recording.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.